There are 6 massive mistakes that homebuyers are making with their home purchases. Whether it's your first home or your 5th home, these are common mistakes that everyone is doing across the board. And the average person making these mistakes can pay up to an unnecessary $12,000 per year or more, and even lose their home if they fall into this trap without realizing. Now, most people think it's because of high interest rates, but it turns out that it has nothing to do with interest rates, because the biggest waste of money is coming from these 6 things that I'm about to share with you today, so that you don't make these same mistakes. Now, the first massive mistake that home buyers are making with their home purchase is not using the right real estate agent. I had a situation where I represented the seller on the sale of a home, and the buyer's agent submitted their inspection objection 2 days past the deadline. Now, stick with me, okay? For those who haven't bought a house in a while, let me explain. The real estate contracts are packed with important legally binding deadlines, and these deadlines, they're like a roadmap for the transaction, keeping everything on track and making sure that both the buyers and the sellers meet all of the responsibilities within a reasonable time frame. Now, if you don't submit your inspection objection by this specific date, you lose the right to negotiate repairs, or you lose the right to terminate the contract based on inspection items or inspection-related issues. The home then becomes sold as is, and at that point, it means that you're willing to accept it in its current condition without the seller making any repairs. So imagine, as a buyer, you're excited to move into your new home, you submit your earnest money, and you have your inspection. You do all of the right things as far as due diligence goes and making sure that you're buying the right property. However, there's a major issue with the house which came up in inspection. It's the roof. It's got a ton of hail damage, and we live in Colorado Springs, so it's normal to have to replace a roof more often, especially in this specific area. So you basically tell your agent that you want the seller to replace the roof before closing, which is great, no problem. Seller has no issues, except there is a problem. It's too late, and now you can't back out of the sale due to inspection because you missed your deadline. So the inspection objection deadline is one of the most important dates in the real estate transaction, because it's your chance as the buyer to make sure that the home is in good condition, or at least to address any concerns that you might have. Now, if you try to back out on those inspection items, but the deadline has come and gone, you can and will lose your earnest money. Now, this is your agent's job, right? Well, you would think so, but in this case, the agent failed the buyer by submitting it late, and I hear countless stories about these situations where agents miss a deadline and cost the buyer their earnest money, or even worse, a place to live, or in this case, no roof. Now, the sellers were nice enough to take care of the roof and everything worked out in the end, but it's that unnecessary and added stress that the buyer could have avoided had their agent been on top of things. And furthermore, thankfully, the sellers were nice people, because technically they didn't have to do the roof. They didn't have to do any repairs because there was no inspection objection. But if the seller was a complete jerk and didn't want to do the work, then they could have gotten away with it legally. The next mistake that home buyers are making with their home purchase is not shopping around for homeowners insurance. Now, this is not the mortgage insurance. This is separate from the mortgage insurance that your lender charges you when you are purchasing a home. That insurance is for in case the buyer defaults, the borrower defaults on the loan, and that's what that's for. This is actually homeowners insurance if there's hail damage, or God forbid some act of nature that drops a tree on your house or something crazy, right? So shopping around for homeowners insurance can save you a significant amount of money depending on your location and coverage you choose, and obviously the pricing. Now, I understand that shopping insurance takes time and pulls you away from your job, your kids, and it can add some extra stress to an already stressful situation of buying a home. But the amount of money that you can potentially save just by making a few more phone calls could be enough to send you on an extra vacation or pay down your principal. But something to keep in mind, that even just buying in the wrong neighborhood could add thousands of dollars to your insurance premium every year. So another thing to think about, sometimes it's the smallest thing like your zip code that skyrockets your insurance. So even just buying in the right area can save you a ton of money. All right, so the average homeowner can save about $900 annually by switching to a lower cost insurer, according to industry reports. Adjusting those coverage levels, right, like changing your deductibles and getting endorsements to match your exact needs, can also help reduce costs. Overinsuring or underinsuring can result in paying more than necessary or risking insufficient protection, not having enough. And a lot of people that might be watching this, maybe your home value has skyrocketed like it has here in Colorado, and you haven't updated your insurance, or the value amount is not the same. So you may not even have enough coverage on your current property. So, I mean, that's going to make your insurance go up, but you want to make sure that you are adequately insured in the event that something terrible happens. Calling 3 to 5 insurers can help you feel confident that you're getting the absolute best deal. Also, don't forget to check those reviews. Just because it's cheaper does not mean it's better. Some insurance companies love to dodge their commitments, which could result in losing money. You should actually probably do this every single year, which reminds me we should probably do this as well. The third mistake that home buyers are making with their home purchase is buying in a less than perfect metro district, meaning a shady metro district. Maybe if I could be more direct. If you already know what a metro district is, you can skip to the next timestamp in the video. Otherwise, let's break down metro districts and what they are, their pros and cons. They're pretty popular here in Colorado. A metro district is short for metropolitan district. It's a way to fund things like roads, parks, utilities in new neighborhoods in Colorado. This happens a lot here. Developers will set them up when they're planning a new community. They'll use these bonds to pay for the infrastructure up front, and then homeowners in the area pay property taxes additionally to cover those costs over time. This helps keep the price of a new home lower by spreading out the cost of building the neighborhood across everyone who lives there. It's a simple way to make new communities possible without relying on city funding or county budgets. So let's talk about the pros of living in a metro district. You get enhanced infrastructure and amenities with things like well-maintained parks, roads, trails, street lights, other quality of life enhancing amenities. I'm seeing a lot more dog parks in the area. I'm seeing swimming pools and splash pads. Areas like Wolf Ranch, they're putting in ponds or tiny little lakes. And oftentimes those amenities can boost the property values throughout the district. And metro districts help finance big, large-scale projects that wouldn't be possible otherwise, which helps you get those top-notch facilities and the maintenance for them as well. The cons, however, include more taxes, higher taxes, and homeowners in metro districts pay, like I said, additional property taxes on top of normal taxes to repay those bonds used to finance the community improvements. Another con is the potential conflict of interest, since developers have control of the district's finances. And unlike an HOA, there isn't enough transparency or accountability, so you're kind of left in the dark about the district's intentions. And if you buy in a poorly managed metro district where the landscaping is declining, or maybe they didn't budget enough for their plans, you could be stuck coming up with the difference or having to pay even more later down the line. Now, here's one example in a neighborhood in Colorado Springs called Flying Horse. You may have heard of this area. It's a very popular area, and it may come as a surprise because this is a luxury neighborhood, but maybe not a surprise because it's a luxury neighborhood. But a lawsuit was filed over property taxes in Flying Horse, one of the most popular metro districts in southern Colorado, because they failed to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars of funds needed for operation and maintenance activities. And without getting deep into the drama, the residents basically, they were worried about the debt, something like $70 million, I believe. But it's tough to avoid these types of neighborhoods when 87% of all new homes sold in the Colorado Front Range in 2023 were inside of a metro district. So, I mean, it helps us build quicker with our shortfall on homes for sale, but it also poses a new issue when it comes to building everything in a metro district. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Which leads me to the next massive mistake that home buyers are making with their home purchases, and that's just buying a house in a less than perfect HOA or a shady HOA. Similar to the Metro District, HOAs maintain property values by enforcing community standards and aesthetic guidelines. They often provide similar shared amenities, swimming pools, clubhouses, and landscaping. And there was a time where a lot of these condos would put in these swimming pools. So you really have to be careful if you are buying a condo in Colorado or anywhere. Make sure that their pool is not filled with cement and that they're actually providing a swimming pool, because a lot of agents are still marketing that they're providing a swimming pool or a park, but these parks are run down. The clubhouse is a storage and it has a bunch of old furniture and you can't use it. So you really want to make sure that and do your due diligence and make sure that those properties still offer this type of amenity. Otherwise, you're just paying all this extra money for nothing when it's, a cement swimming pool, what used to be. But an HOA is more personal, as in its community events, its activities. The homeowners are on the board. They have their little meetings and transparency over finances and what's going on in the neighborhood. They also keep the neighborhood nice. They make sure that the yard is kept. Everyone's yards are kept. No abandoned cars, trash, stuff that's basically making the curb appeal terrible. It pretty much keeps the home values higher just because the homes are well maintained. But there's some cons to that too. So those fees can be a major burden. They're usually way higher than a Metro District tax, and they pose a different type of burden when it comes to restrictions. They don't let you do things with your own property, like paint colors or even things that you can do in your own yard. Several years ago, my neighbor sold her house and she needed permission from 3 nearby neighbors to escape her front yard, which is not that big of a deal. Like, my HOA seems pretty good. We recently got assessed, which is, I guess, bound to happen. Everything is going up in price right now. So that's not too bad, right? But another neighbor who spent thousands of dollars painted his house, but it wasn't on par with the HOA rules, so he had to repaint it. And if you don't pay those fines that you feel are wrongfully imposed, they could totally put a lien on your house. And then they can put late fees on those fines. And then you're just finding yourself in this never-ending pit of fines. Also, the management could be terrible. I can't even begin to share all of the horror stories I've heard about HOAs. I always recommend that you research the HOA, make sure they have money in their reserves and no pending assessments that you can't live with, like a multi-million-dollar retaining wall that makes your HOA shoot up $300 a month, or some other project that you don't believe in or that you don't think is necessary that's going to raise the HOA. So when you're buying a house, make sure that you look into that. Are there any pending assessments coming up? Make sure you get those minutes from the meetings so that you can make a well-informed decision, because that's the last thing you need, especially if you're buying at the top of your budget, which I highly recommend that you don't. Then you're kind of going to be losing money. It's a huge mistake, a huge money mistake when it comes to the HOA and your home buying budget. But I digress. There was a time when the HOA was beneficial to the neighborhood, and there still are a lot of neighborhoods that are great here in Colorado Springs, and probably where you are too. Over time, that mismanagement of funds, insurance prices skyrocketing. So if you're going to an area like Florida or California with high insurance, those are things you want to look out for. But it just kind of changed the way that HOAs were run. Here in the Springs, we used to have such a small community that everyone knew everyone, and you built your reputation on the service that you provide. Well, now it's gotten so big that people can get away with things more, and so the services, in my opinion, it's just not what it used to be. And so too many HOA management companies have terrible reviews, and they're difficult to reach. So make sure that you're in a good area with a good management company. And yes, management companies can change, but at least to start, if you know that you have a good group of people, that they're going to make sure that it stays good over time. There was a situation where we had to march down to the HOA because they would not respond. There was basically another unit that the pipes burst and literally all its guts fell out into the parking area, the parking garage, where parents, had to go in and out. They couldn't even get to their condos, their townhouse or whatever. And so it was a nightmare, and it went on for months. So it's just things like that that really give HOAs a bad name. And all I can say is just do your due diligence. The fourth mistake that I see many people making, and I completely understand why people do this, but in every property I've ever purchased, I've overlooked this and it's saved us so much money. And that's just simply not nitpicking the house. Now, I know all you millennials watching want a move-in ready home, and I totally understand. I'm not judging at all. Moving takes a toll on you, and the last thing that you want to do is work on a house after you've already moved in. You just want to be moved in and move on with your life. I get it. But unless you're building a brand new house and you're going to pick out your finishes and your paint colors and fixtures, you may want to consider being okay with some amount of work. But even with new builds, things could come up and do come up all of the time. And it's almost like Murphy's Law. And I hate to say that, but usually when you move into a house, something always breaks down or something doesn't meet your expectation, or you notice something that you didn't notice in the inspection and you have to get it fixed. Or a water heater will go out, or your AC will go out. Something's going to happen. And so you're just going to have to be prepared for that. But also, if you're anything like me, you're probably eager to get rid of that dirty carpet anyway. Carpet holds so much ick. Now, the fifth mistake is not buying title insurance. Brandon was buying his dream home for his family, a 4-bedroom ranch home in an older historic neighborhood. He fell absolutely in love with the place the moment he walked in. It had the charm, the history, the perfect backyard for the dog. It had the bay windows, and there were trees and just a gorgeous, beautiful home. It had a nice big red door. Everything was just perfect about this house. His wife really loved it. Everything seemed great, and the closing process went so smooth. He got the keys, moved in, and started making the house his own because, right, there's so many things to update in an older home. Now, a few months later, he gets this official looking letter out of nowhere, and it's some guy claiming that he inherited a stake in the property from his estranged father decades ago. Now, he just found out that the house sold and is demanding a chunk of the property's value, or he'll take him to court. Brandon was obviously freaked out and thought, what if I lose my house? I've poured thousands of dollars into renovations, and I've moved my entire family across the state. He called his real estate agent, who then told him she ordered his title insurance when he bought the house. Now, his title company did their due diligence, but sometimes these old claims or missing heirs that just pop out of nowhere, no one could predict that kind of thing. So, because Brandon had that title insurance, his policy covered all of the legal fees to fight the claim and ultimately prove that he was the rightful owner. Now, he didn't have to spend a dime out of pocket, but without that insurance, Brandon could have been stuck with a legal battle that might have costed him thousands, or even worse, cost him the house. So, yeah, title insurance isn't the sexiest part of buying a house, but it's definitely a safety net. You hope that you never need it, but when you do, it's a lifesaver. The good thing is that you can always ask the seller to cover this, and it's usually around, depending on the size of the home and the purchase price, I believe it's anywhere from $1,200 to $1,800, more or less. And then if there's additional insurance, then you can go ahead and cover that just so you can have peace of mind, right? It's a one-time purchase that offers long-term security for your investment. Now, the last massive mistake that homebuyers are making is not paying extra towards principal. So let's break this down with some numbers. I know how much you guys love seeing the charts and the numbers. So paying an extra $100 towards the principal can make a significant difference over the life of a loan, of a 30-year loan. So let's say you're paying an extra $100 per month over your payment. You'll probably save, a few 10,000 grand, maybe 50,000 grand or so, maybe less over the 30 years. Maybe you shave off a year or so, two maybe off of your mortgage loan. However, a lot of people, and you may have heard the most efficient way to do this is the bi-weekly mortgage payment method. It's a little more tangible and easier to do. You just have to get it in your mind, honestly, because you already know in your mind that you're going to pay X amount toward your monthly payment. But if you tell yourself every other week, I'm going to make this payment, you'll come up with the money. So in making bi-weekly payments, those 26 annual payments effectively create an additional 13th month of regular payments in each calendar year. So here's an example. on a $700,000 house with 20% down, which equals $140,000. The normal way of things, you would take 30 years to repay the loan, while a biweekly plan will take 24 years and 1 month. So this will save you 5 years and 11 months, but the savings don't end there. You actually end up saving approximately, get this, $160,000. Now, you lose those tax benefits when you're not paying those 5 years, but to me, this is totally worth it without question. I was honestly surprised. I had to play with it, several different calculators to make sure that that was accurate. $160,000 just by paying a few extra thousand a year. I mean, that's huge, which is why I've added it to this list. But now that you've learned about these massive money mistakes when it comes to your mortgage, you need to know the red flags to look out for while you're home shopping, while you're out there looking at properties. And that's the video that's popping up next on the screen. And if you need help finding a real estate agent or a lender, or you need any help with real estate, please give me a shout. I'll post a link in the description where you can reach out to me. I've partnered up with a real estate attorney so that my clients can get a little bit more cushion when it comes to protection on the real estate side. You can never have enough protection. It doesn't cost you more. But I feel that having a real estate attorney who can legally give you legal advice, right? Real estate agents aren't allowed to do that. They're only supposed to obviously guide you in the process. But anyway, so partnering up with a lawyer to help my clients get the most protection when it comes to their assets. I mean, these assets are major. So anyway, I'll link that down below, and I will see you on the next video.